so enamored with the Bible? Was this in as a child, or is it early teen years, or was it there at Cambridge?
Well, very early on, because you have to remember the context here. The 17th century. I recently heard a talk by Os Guinness who said the 17th century was a biblical century. It was a century of the Bible. You see it in the scientists like John Ray and Robert Boyle, Isaac Newton. You see it in the poets like John Donne. You see it in the politics, because this is the century where there's the English Civil War, and there's the idea of the theological or the political philosophy of some of the theologians. The Scottish reformer Samuel Rutherford writes the book Lex Rex, which is the idea that the law is king, that even the king must be under the law. And so this whole push towards making the king accountable, and the push towards parliamentary democracy, which creates the conditions of the English Civil War and eventually the Glorious Revolution in 1688, is all a manifestation of an outworking, I would say, of the Protestant Reformation, which is this kind of rediscovery of the Scriptures as the basis of Christian practice. And so Newton is a young man at the time the English Civil War is going on, and that's the forces of the parliamentarians, who are low church Protestants looking to Scripture as their basis of authority, versus in this case the high church Catholics, who are still believing in the divine right of kings, and you have this kind of tension. So Newton is coming of age in a time when the Bible is very much in the center of public discourse. And the Puritan theology that is in many ways behind the English Revolution is also the theology that he's exposed to as a very young man. And so he's reading the Scriptures as a young person, even as he's inventing machines and eventually then learning mathematics. And he's already, by the time he's developing his ideas about gravitation, thinking about them in the context of a natural theological project. He wants to reveal the reality of God through what we would call his science, what was called then as natural philosophy. And no doubt in that you see the influence of Isaac Barrow, and through Barrow the influence of John Ray.
This is interesting to me. So he's trying to reveal more about the Scriptures through his work in the natural sciences. Correct?
Well, correct. And remember that by the end of his life, he had written over 1 million words of theological or biblical commentary. He wrote more on the Bible than he wrote about the heavens, about science. And yet he wrote the optics. He had the first breakthrough theories and experimental work on light. He invented the binomial theorem, the calculus. He developed the 3 laws of motion. He developed the universal gravitation, which to me is one of the most fascinating episodes in the history of science, because it induced this huge controversy, which we can talk about. But he's tremendously productive scientifically, but he was, if anything, more interested in theology.
Interesting. Let me pivot for a